Alright everybody, welcome to Code Levelers. Now, in today's topic we are going to view the most frequently asked important interview question, which is the number of islands. Okay, now let's search for the problem. Number of islands. It's taking time. Okay. Now, this number of islands problem, in which we are given a m cross n 2D binary grid which represents map of ones which represents islands and zeros which represents water. We are just going to check for adjacent values of ones which forms an island. Now notice this point clearly. We are not going to use this method for checking diagonal elements, okay, only adjacent values. So the topics we are given here is array DFS, BFS, union find matrix. We are going to use the BFS approach in this problem. Okay, BFS means we are going to use the iterative method for searching the islands in the given matrix. Okay, in this example 2 we can clearly see, starting from this one we are going to have the adjacent values as 1 1 1, so 4 ones forms a island, and again this one forms another island, this 2 ones form another island, so there's totally 3 islands are forming in this matrix. So an island is surrounded by water and is formed by connecting adjacent islands horizontally and vertically, and now note this clearly once again, not diagonally. They didn't mention diagonal, so you may assume all 4 edges of the grid are all surrounded by water. So now let's start the code. Okay, now we should first initialize the number count of the islands. Okay, now let's create a for loop. Int I is equal to 0, I less than grid dot length, which we use basically for traversing through the matrix. Okay, n square complexity. Okay, int j is equal to 0, j less than grid of 0 dot length, j plus plus. Okay, once again, now if of grid of I of j equal to 1, which means the island. So now we are going to increment the count value. Okay, we just incremented the count value, and we are now going to use the BFS method. We are going to call it iteratively, ij and grid. Fine. Now once again we are now going to create a private method, private void BFS of int I, int j, and in character grid. Okay, now let's start the constraints, as we are going to use a queue as of BFS. Okay, queue, and I will come to that part why didn't fill it. Queue q, let's name it q, is equal to new. Okay, let's use linked list. Okay, now we are going to give the directions. I am going to use here 2D matrix for the directions, which is equal to 1, 0, and -1 comma 0 and 0 comma 1, 0 comma -1. Okay, now these represents the directions. So alright, now the first one represents the downward movement down, and the next one represents the upward movement, and the third one represents the right, and the last one represents the left directions. Okay, bottom, up, right and left. Okay, now let's add the value. Before going to the loop, q dot add of, what should we add here? We are going to add a pair. Okay, it is a defined class. I am going to create one class pair. Going to use some oops concepts in here. Alright, we have just created a class and using int row and int column. Alright, now let's create a constructor public public pair of int row comma int column, pass the arguments. Okay, now let's create an instance for this. Row is equal to row and this dot column is equal to column. Okay, we have just created it, and now we are going to create a sorry, I just left one part. Now we are just going to create a visited boolean 2D matrix. Boolean visited is equal to new boolean matrix. Okay, okay, this one size consists of grid dot length, grid of 0 dot length. Okay, grid dot length. Okay, now this is the semicolon here, and I added the value q dot add of new pair of this row and column, row comma column. Okay, now we just added it, so we are going to put the boolean value of this row and column as true. Okay, sorry, row and column as true. So now we are going to iterate using the while loop. While of q dot is empty function. We are going to use BFS in this, so we are going to iterate to this. Now let's use a current value, that means the next value we are going to check. So pair next is equal to no, pair current value, this is the current value, pair current value is equal to q dot poll function. Alright, just choose poll function here, and then we are now going to iterate through the directions. Int directions colon directions. Okay, now we are going to update it to the next row and next column. next row which is equal to, and next column, sorry, and int next column. Okay, now let's add the values to the current value. Current dot row with plus this row value, that is the direction, upward or downward or left or right. Okay, direction of 0. First, current dot column plus direction of 1. All right, now we are just going to check for the boundary condition. Okay, so that it doesn't exceed this matrix. Okay, matrix length, which means the rows and columns. Okay, now let's create an in boundary function, boundary. In boundary of next row comma next column. All right, now we are going to, oh sorry, I didn't use the grid. Okay, now we are again going to check whether the next next grid value is a island, that is one character. Okay, now next row and then next column. Okay, which is equal to 1. All right, and again we are going to check whether the value is visited or not. So we are going to use the boolean matrix visited of next row and next column. If it is already visited value, then it should not be checked again. Okay, is not of visited of next row and next column. Okay, now going to the condition. Now if it satisfies the condition, we are now going to add it in the queue as a new pair of next row and next column. Okay, we are just added it, and then we are going to put this node as visited. So again next row and next column as visited, so it is true. Okay, now we are just finished the BFS condition. Now we are going to create the method for in boundary. All right, now let's create one. Private, so I think I just did this in here itself. Should have made this in here. All right, so okay, now let's code it. Private boolean in boundary of int row comma int column comma character grid. Okay, now we are going to check if it is returning true or false. This is a boolean condition, so it should return true or false value. So we are going to check whether the row is greater than or equal to 0, or no, or ampersand row is less than grid dot length, that is the number of rows in the grid, ampersand column should be okay, this column should be greater than or equal to 0, and once again column should be less than grid of 0 dot length. Okay, number of columns. Okay, now just finish this code. We didn't return the value of count, so let's return it. Return C. Okay, let's just run this. Oh yeah, this dot column. Okay, now it should run, I think. Okay, missed the semicolon here. Now should run. Q dot add of new pair of row comma column. So I did mention here I and j, so we are going to change this row and column. Okay, now y expected 1 and the output is 9. Okay guys, I think we just use this in here. Okay, hope this works. And change it here, comma this visited matrix visited. Now once again I just run this. Okay, this visited boolean visited. Okay, once again I'm going to run this. So again we are getting this error. So what should we do? And see, think I just stick from this spot. Okay, this is good, and this one is good, and once again just I iterated it. Okay, is equal to 1. Oh, okay, I just didn't add another condition. I should check once again in here, not visited of ij. Okay, again I am going to run this, check. Just accepted this. Alright, now the expected value is 1, expected value is 3. Okay, let's just submit this. So 7%. So we can also do this in DFS method. Okay, now let's do this same problem in DFS. Okay, let's just change this. This DFS is an iterative method. Okay, so we are just going to use recursive calls in here. Okay, this one is one method, and you can do DFS in like recursion or backtracking. Okay, now let's do this in recursion. Okay, now we are just going to change some code in here. Right, we don't need a queue in DFS. First I'm going to remove this queue and going to remove this while loop. Okay, remove the while loop, and I think we don't need this pair value, so let's just remove this and again. So let's just delete this class pair value. Okay, now what are we going to need? Next row, we are just going to need the row, because we are just going to iterate iterate, we are just going to go through recursion, so we don't need that values, recursion and call, and then we are just going to use this to check for the recursion. Okay, DFS of next row, comma next column, comma grade, comma visited. All right, now there's no mistake in here. Okay, let's just run this. There's an error here, always missing the semicolons. Compilation error. Okay, where this is line number 40. I think this one. Oh, okay. Didn't close this one. No. Right. This private. This one is for this one. So this one should be for that one. Alright. We are going on a mistake. For loop should be okay. This one, this one, all right. Let's run this again. Again, compilation error. Then you can check this class solution. Int c is equal to 0, boolean visitor. Okay, for int I is closed, and then returning c. Okay, private void. Okay, I didn't mention DFS. Okay, int directions and the visited row and the directions we are going to iterate, and the boundary condition. Okay, now let's just run this again. Alright, got the output. So this is how DFS works in this program. Okay, let's meet in the dry run.
A few moments later, a few minutes later.
Okay guys, let's start the dry run using BFS, where we have just created a pair value where the rows and columns. Okay, now with this pair we are going to create a queue, okay, for storing this row and column. So, and then we had just created a visitor matrix, okay, which is initially full of false, 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 entirely false, okay. And then we are just going to iterate this through the grid value j is equal to 0, j less than grid 0, okay. We are just going to iterate through this, and then we are just going to call the BFS function I, j and grid and the visited nodes, and then we are just going to increment the c value, alright, now, and returning the c value. So let's go into the BFS. In this BFS we are going to create a direction array, okay, direction to 2D matrix. You can also create a 1D array based on your ideas, okay. I think using this 2D matrix will be much easier to pick up, okay. So -1 0, or this I can just take this as 1 0, 1 and 0, and -1 and 0, and 0 and 1, and 0 comma -1, okay. This one represents a downward movement, this one represents a upward movement, this one represents a left movement, sorry, this one represents a right movement, and this one represents a leftward movements, okay. So now let's iterate through, let's we are going to iterate through all the directions, okay, direction colon directions. Now we are just going to create a next row and next column, because we are just visited this node already, okay. We are just visited this node already and added this value in the q dot add of new pair of 0 comma 0, which is 1, okay, and made it as visited is equal to true, okay. Now as we go through this, the next row will become what 0, initially this is 0 plus this pair, okay, current, this one is current value, and we are now going to move this through the upward direction, okay, which downward direction with this one, okay, direction of 0, no sorry, this one is not the 2D matrix, direction of 0, which is 1, okay, and then 0 plus thereof 1, which is 0. So we are just going to through the next row, okay, next row, and but the same column, okay, we just moved through it. So now we are now going to check for the boundary conditions, in boundary conditions, okay. We know the boundary conditions, that it should not exit this, okay, where the boundary conditions where the row should be greater than or equal to 0, and the row should be less than the grid dot length, that is the number of rows, and the same applies for the column should be greater than 0, and column should be less than the number of columns in the grid, okay. Now, and we are just going to check whether if it is visited. So this should be should not be visited, I and j, and the value should be equal to 1. Okay, that q value phi j should be equal to 1. Okay, this is not I and j. In the program it should be row and column. Okay, now let's, if it is if it satisfies these conditions, then um, then we should be adding this value to this queue. All right, so I think this should satisfy the condition, because the next column value, next row value is 1, so this q value is added. Okay, q value is added as this 1 comma 0. 1 comma 0 is added, and then the visited node is also is equal to true, so the matrix becomes true and true, these and all false, 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 false. Okay, so okay, now once again we are just going to iterate through the next direction, which is upward. Okay, upward is not possible. Why? Because it neglects the condition, which is the in boundary, neglects in boundary conditions. Okay, now we try to go through the right. Okay, it satisfies in boundary, satisfies in boundary condition. So once again this becomes okay, all right, this becomes true. Okay, now this becomes true, and we are just going to add this value once again. Q dot add of, what is this value? 0 comma 1. Okay, and this is visited as true, and once again we are going to iterate for this one. Sorry, now let's check if it has any left. No left, because it doesn't satisfy the in boundary conditions. Okay, now again we are going to traverse through this. Now I think we are just going to add this value once again by polling. Okay, we are just going to poll this value of 1 comma 0. Okay, now again we are going to check 1 comma 0 for directions. 1 comma 0 can go through the right, so it should become 1 comma 1. We are going to add 1 comma 1 and mark it as true. Okay, and once again we can't check, because the other values are 0, so we are returning. Now C should be 1, and once again we should go through the loop, and so this one should become true, which becomes one value, and once again after checking through the loop in the main method, this one also becomes true because this is the only one, this is the second island, and again this one, okay, this one becomes true. Alright, so now we are getting 1 plus 1 plus 1, which is equal to 3 islands. Alright, so this is the dry run for the BFS method. Okay, for the DFS dry run, you should be using the recursion method. Okay, in this recursion method there is no need to use the queue. Okay, now so we are just going through from this one and then this one and then this one. This forms a DFS. Sorry, this forms an island. Okay, we are not going to use BFS. I think you are getting this. So this is how DFS works. Okay, this BFS is just for understanding, but DFS reduces time consuming, so I recommend you guys to use DFS method. Okay, if you like this video, like, share and subscribe, and try to learn new concepts every day on your own. Okay, because self learning is important in the day to day technology development. Okay, because we should cope up with new technologies, and understanding is very important. We should not mug up these problems because it will be a waste if you mug up it. Okay, so guys, just try to learn the problem first and learn it by understanding. Okay, so you can do the problems on your own. Okay, thank you guys for watching this. Okay, until then, goodbye.